Good morning, class. I trust that you have had a pleasant weekend. It's a pleasure being here with you again. How are you doing?
We're doing okay, sir.
Good, that's good to know. Well, as you may be aware, today we're continuing with our English B short stories for CSEC. And today we're looking at Minty, as you guys are fully aware. But before we actually get into discussing that short story, which I trust that you read and you enjoyed reading over the weekend, I have a question for you. I would like you to share a memorable experience from your past or a positive word of advice that you received from an older person that would have shaped the type of person you are today. Does anyone have such an experience?
May I go, sir?
Yes, go ahead, Michelle.
Thank you. Well, when I switched schools, I felt so lost. But then I met my best friend in the weirdest way. Both of us reaching for the same lost socks in the school lost and found. It taught me that sometimes the best things happen when we least expect them. Now, I cherish the unexpected friendship that come my way.
Wow, that's an interesting experience. Thank you for sharing, Michelle. Does anyone else have one?
Sir, may I go?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Remember last year when I had to give a speech in front of the entire school?
I do.
I was so nervous. But afterwards, my teacher told me that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing it anyway. Now, whenever I feel scared, I remember that moment and push through. It's like my mini prep talk, kind of.
I appreciate that, Sarah. I believe Miss Zinti was the teacher who told you that.
Yeah, she was, sir.
Good, and I'm glad that that memory is still with you a year later. So I wish you could take more hands, but I appreciate the responses that we have so far. And as you will see a bit later, how memories from our past and advice or interactions with others who may be older than us can actually affect us in positive ways. And in fact, the story that we're going to discuss today, Minty, will highlight that. So as we examine the characters and their characterization, we will see how this affects their interactions with one another. We will also be doing some character analyses. We'll watch a video, and I have some interesting activities for you. So that will be the essence of today's lesson.
Okay, sir.
So the first part of it involves us watching a video on character analysis. It will explain to you how you can actually go about analyzing characters in a meaningful way. So without further ado, let's roll the projector and play that video.
Okay, sir.
Wow, I trust that you guys enjoyed that video on character analysis. I trust that you enjoyed our discussion on one of the main female characters, Florence. It was very insightful.
It was interesting, sir.
Thank you, and I know that you would have learned a lot.
Yes,
But
you did.
at this phase of our lesson, we're going to examine the other female character, the main female character. Her name is Esme, as you all know. So, I have some questions that I've compiled related to Esme, and we're going to use these as a basis for our class discussion. Now, here's the first question. Bearing in mind that Esme grew up in an orphanage, what challenges do you think she faced as a result of that type of an upbringing? And how do you think these challenges would have affected her?
Me, sir. I would like to.
Go ahead, Miranda.
Thank you very much. Well, I think Esme had it tough because she didn't get the kind of upbringing most of us have. She is from an institution, and that probably means she missed out on learning some basic stuff like you and I would know. And like she said, she wasn't so good with books, and that could have been tough. And when she was with Florence, you can see she's not used to certain things, and it's not her fault. Like, she struggled to find a job And it's probably because she didn't get the right skills growing up. I think that's my thoughts.
Wow, I appreciate that, Miranda, and that was well said, right? I can certainly see that you would have read that story well and taken to heart certain points from it. That was quite interesting. Now, here's another question related to that, and others can be free to share as well. And I would like you to relate this question to yourself, right? Have you ever encountered situations where someone's background or upbringing may have affected their ability to adapt to a new environment?
Sorry, look, Michelle has her hands up.
Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
Well, sorry, totally. I knew this girl once who moved there from a whole different country. Her background was so different, and she struggled to fit in. It was like she was alone to her whole life, and it made it tough for her to adopt. It made me realize how much our past can shape how we handle new stuff or new things or new environment.
Thank you, Michelle. And throughout the course of that story, you guys would have observed that there were certain things that Esme struggled with. Right? Florence quickly recognized that she wasn't good with reading. She didn't know much of anything else.
Yeah.
The only things that she could have really related to were the things that she was taught in the institution, and that involved taking care of the younger children. And she seemed to be capable of doing housework because probably that was what she did most of the time.
She was familiar with that,
That
accustomed
alone.
to that alone. So
Yes, so we can see how that would have affected her.
yeah.
So Esme also had her own challenges dealing with Florence. Do you remember they were of two different age groups? Florence was much older, Esme's younger,
Yes, sir.
and this caused some tension between the two of them. So reflect on a time when you had a difficulty understanding or communicating with someone of a different age group. What were the challenges and how did you overcome them?
Sorry, that's a simple one. I remember this project where we had to work with adults, and it was kind of weird, like really weird. They had their ideas, and we had ours. At first, it was hard to get on the same page with them. They had more experience, but sometimes it felt like they weren't really listening to our ideas. We had to find a balance, balance a middle man here. Like we had to speak up and also listen to what they were saying. It took a bit, but we got there eventually.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm
Yeah,
glad
it
to
was
hear
really
that.
hard though.
And it's not always easy when you have to communicate with someone who's way older than you.
Definitely.
They generally have their own way of doing things, and you might have other methods, and it can be a little bit tense
I
at times.
definitely had other methods.
But we can learn a lot from older ones, and they can from us as well.
True, I agree.
Now, here's another question. Can you remember when Esme tried to get tea for Florence and the cup broke? Can you remember that?
Oh, definitely.
So, think about the moment when you experienced a strong emotion that was triggered by a seemingly small thing like a broken cup. How did you react to that event?
Sir, look, Michelle hands is up.
Well, Michelle, go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. There was this time when my phone broke, and it was just a phone, but I got so mad and upset. It's funny how these small things can hit you hard. I guess it's because they're connected to bigger stuff. Losing a cup or breaking a phone might not be a big deal, but it's like a symbol of other things. It can mess with your mood for a while. That's what happened with me. It really messed with my mood. I was upset and sad and
Thank you very
had
much,
some
Michelle.
strong and weird emotions.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And I like one thing that you would have mentioned, right? You said it could be a symbol of other things.
Yes,
Right?
indeed.
And In Esme's case, like you would have highlighted, a cup is a seemingly small thing, but that breaking of that cup, she remember she was already fragile, so
Yes.
that really struck her and brought back memories that she probably was trying to suppress.
And you can have a connection.
So I really appreciate how you guys would have freely expressed your feelings regarding Esme. And I also appreciate how you could relate it to experiences in your own life. And that is the thing about literature. Literature, even though parts of it may be fictional, the important thing is to take that story off of the printed page and relate it to the real world. So, I have an activity for you guys to do for me.
Okay, sir.
And this activity, now that we've examined both Florence and Esme, this activity involves creating character profiles for them. So I'm going to divide you guys into 4 groups of 4, and I'm going to give 2 groups Esme, and I'm going to give 2 groups Florence. So what you are going to do is, I have what in my hand, copies of a graphic organizer. And what this does is divide your character profiles into 4 sections.
Okay.
You're going to focus on what the characters say, what the characters do, what others say about them, and how others react to them. And each person in your group will handle one of those so that you can quickly produce this character profile. So I'm going to give out these graphic organizers to help you so that you can complete this activity for me quickly, and then we'll move on to the next phase of our lesson.
Okay,
Here you
sir. I think I know who I want to partner with.
Here you go.
Thank you very much, sir.
Good. So I hope you guys enjoy that activity that you had to do. I'm really curious to see what you have done. And as you can see, I designed it in such a way that it could appeal to each of your learning styles and intelligences. For those of you who like to dance, those of you who like to sing, those of you who are good at role playing or writing, I'm certain that you would have found varying ways to express the thoughts that you would have learned from the lesson.
Yes, sir. I enjoyed it.
So, what I would like to do at this phase is to have one of the groups, as I was moving around, I noticed that the group had an interesting song. I would like one of the members to come up and just give a brief presentation for the benefit of the class. Thank you for that presentation. I'm certain yourself and your friends would have enjoyed that. So, I have some homework for you. And this is what the homework involves. You are going to write a short reflection on one of the characters, either Esme or Florence, and what their struggles would have taught you and how you can relate that to the real world. And when you come next time, we'll have you guys read those reflections for the benefit of the class.
Okay, sir.
So let's recap our lesson. And I just have one question for a recap. And it says, describe Florence or Esme and comment on how the differences between the 2 women affected them and their interactions with each other. So we're going to begin first with Florence. Who would like to tell me about her?
Sir, me. I would like to.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I didn't have a chance. Okay. Florence is like this retired teacher, kind of stuck in her way and her routine, always thinking about the past. She's all about stability and order, you know those.
Thank you. I appreciate that response. Anyone else?
I would like to go, sir.
Ebony, go ahead.
Okay, so Florence is like living in the memories of past. She used to have this busy life, and now now she's retired and feeling bored and boredom, all those things that comes.
I understand. I appreciate that very much. So, what about Esme? Who would like to tell me about Esme? Michelle, go ahead.
Okay, yes, sir. Well, Esme is this young girl who grew up in in some sort of institution, awkward and bony, and she seems kind of lost. And based on what we noticed, we watched and read, she seems to lack certain skills and ambitions.
That is on point. That is correct. So let's focus on their interactions. How how do these differences affect their interactions? Go ahead, Paula.
Well, Florence and Esme are from totally different world. Florence wants to guide Esme, but the generation gap is like a language barrier.
I appreciate that. I'm glad that you mentioned the generational gap. Anyone else?
I would like to go, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Florence at times felt frustrated. She is all about structure, while Esme is just not used to that. She isn't used to having this sort of structure.
Well said. Well said. Now let's think of it from a different angle. Think of it from Esme's perspective. And tell me.
I would say Esme, because she wasn't accustomed, she probably felt overwhelmed by it all. Florence tried to help, but she got this whole pass, and it's hard for her to relate to her. So that's how I see it.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate those responses. And since we were looking at characterization, I'm certain that you learned a lot about Florence as a character and Esme as a character.
Yes.
And as you can see, one thing I would like you to take away from our examination of characterization is that our experiences in life shape the sort of individuals that we become, and we could all learn from one another.
Sir, I agree with that.
See you in our next class.
Okay, sir. See you next class.